time. 3 minutes. 3, 2, 1.
So I ask a question. Do you think we use this, we expand this technology only because of its, like you said, rapid developing?
No, it can, I just mentioned that it can also save a lot of people's lives too.
But don't you realize it can actually, it's very risky, and it can actually kill a big amount of people.
But I think we should give it a try because failure is the mother of success, and we can learn from failure, and it can build up a road to success. Now, here's my question: can you give us an alternative to solve malaria, HIV, and all the other complicated diseases in one medicine?
No. And I think it's time for my question.
Yeah, sure.
You said that like many diseases can be solved by like gene editing technology, but there's a research about 90% of cancers caused by environmental factors. But don't you think we shouldn't expand gene editing technology, but to use this amount of energy and amount of money to like solve the environmental problem that makes people to reduce the chance of people getting cancer?
I think that gene editing can reduce it because you just said that 90% of people there's 90% of people are facing the disease, and I think there's not
what I said is 90% of people getting cancer. The reason is environmental factors. Now there are 90% of people getting cancer.
Okay, so here's my question. I think that gene editing technology is a new method, and how can the human race move on? Do you think that human race can move on without it?
Yes, sure. Because there are other ways to make innovations, and not expanding gene editing technology is not the only way.
Okay, so you can answer the question.
What you have said that gene editing can prevent people from getting diseases. So how do you prove it?
Yeah, I can. There's an evidence that said that every year about 200 million cases of malaria are recorded, and some 450,000 people die from it, and about 70% of them are children under 5. And this which means that it can solve some okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Second speaker, 4 minutes.
My time starts now. Firstly, I would like to make some clarifications within our classifier, which is they have stated that failure is the mother of success. And then so I would like to address that statement into some of our points. Firstly, I would like to address their attention to bioterrorism. We already have an example of bioterrorism happening in the real world. We have this research team from Alberta, Canada, creating a bioweapon that is related to smallpox. And smallpox has killed upwards of 40 million people, right? So failure is the mother of success. One failure could kill us all. I believe we should not support that, and we should not support failure. Now let me move on to their points. They essentially have put out 2 points. One is that because CRISPR-Cas9 develops fast, we should use it. And second is because it prevents diseases. Well, let me tell you, the fact that it has rapid development is true, but we do not believe that if it has rapid development, we should use it. If we rush on and we rush into these things, we will rush into problems. It is the only logical solution. We will rush into problems. We need to calm down, and we need to consider our actions. That is the very reason why we're having this debate, to consider our actions and consider whether we should do this or not. So we believe that that point does not stand. We should not rush into CRISPR because it is developing fast. Now secondly, on to the main point, which is disease prevention, and it will ease the potential burden of healthcare systems. Firstly, on disease prevention. As we stated, that 90% of cancers are actually caused by environmental factors, and many other diseases such as malaria and such as such as other diseases that we see very prominently in the world are actually caused by other factors rather than CRISPR. Now let me tell you why we should actually put money into these other factors other than CRISPR. Because as they said, CRISPR is a very rapidly developing technology, but it is a new technology. We should put money into technologies and frames that already exist. For example, we can put money, this is just an example, into environmental factors, into environments, because we already have companies, we already have frames, and we already have systems that work on these environmental matters rather than this new risky business of CRISPR. So we should put money into these environmental factors because it is safer and has proved to work because we have already seen this in the real world. Secondly, on easing the burden of CRISPR. Alright, this actually relates back to our point of gene editing will eventually collapse the healthcare system. They say CRISPR will ease the burden of healthcare system, but one, they have not provided a card. Two, they have not provided evidence or reasoning on why it will ease the potential burden of CRISPR of the gene editing system. I must repeat that we have evidence on why gene editing will collapse the healthcare system. They have to stand up on their next speech and give us a direct card on whether or not CRISPR will affect the cost. Whether or not the cost of CRISPR will affect healthcare. Because we do have a card. We have a card backed by 3 separate experts on policy, law, and health, Jim, Tina, and Chris, saying that it will eventually collapse the healthcare system. And to win this debate, they will have to prove to you why the cost does not matter. They will have to have a direct card saying that. If they do not, then they have conceded this point. Okay. Now, thirdly, onto another clarification of our rebuttal. Right? They have stated that yes, CRISPR is an advancing technology, but the only reason why it is why we should use it is because of diseases, right? And then after that, the only reason why we should use it is because of diseases. So with the diseases, the rate of diseases. The diseases can be cured by using other methods as I have proved. But my point right now here is that we do not need to put money into CRISPR. We do not need to put money into CRISPR while we can put money into other frameworks that are already existing and that has a higher success rate, as proven higher success rate, and has a less risk of failure. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, second speaker, 4 minutes.
My rebuttal starts now. So first, concerning the Khan's argument about bioterrorism, this is exactly the reason why we should expand access, because this protects us against bioterrorism. Expanding public access means that we can ensure that only defensive gene editing medicine can save us. And as I mentioned, yes, biotech leads to extinction. That is exactly the reason why we should expand access, so that the government can find effective ways for the gene editing medicine. And of course, solving the problem of bioterrorism requires a tolerance for higher risk and less regulation. That is a very important factor. And for our opinion about disease, there is proven that currently there is no other technology that can save people from malaria, mental disorder, CDV, HIV, all in one cure, one drug. No, CRISPR-Cas9 is our only hope. Let's take the example of cardiovascular disease. It is estimated by 2030 that 23 million people will die from it. And currently, there is no available treatment for cardiovascular disease. CRISPR is our only hope. Second, about HIV cure. CRISPR-Cas9 can stop HIV where drug treatments haven't. Scientists in Japan have already successfully used this technology and experimented in mice. It is now proved that it can already be used to the human body. That is something that you really have to consider. And also, concerning your fact about social discrimination, we believe that it offers a safer alternative for skin whitening technique. Currently, skin whitening is a large multi-billion business, and a lot of people are dying because current drugs for treating, for helping people get safer skin whitening, a lot of people are dying. So as bioethics, it is our utmost responsibility to protect people before shaming their behavior, because skin whitening kills people. That is a really important factor that you have to consider. And of course, gene editing is inevitable in the future, because governments and insurance providers will certainly have a strong incentive to support genetic screening. Competitions within and between societies will drive this technology and its application forward. Parents will not want their children to be disadvantaged once the science is deemed safe. Soon, genetic engineering to add DNA from sources other than our two parents will be our reality. So it is inevitable in the long run, and those who opt out will simply fall behind. And concerning if the technology is safe enough, here we have proof that CRISPR-Cas9 has already successfully edited gene editing. So according to the scientists, they have already done a research in China and the US. They put CRISPR-Cas9 technology into embryos that have heart disease, and it solved 3/4 of the disease, proving that now this treatment is safe and ready for the public. So our side firmly believes that public health services should expand access to gene editing technologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 2 and Speaker 2, 3-minute crossfire. Both teams ready? 3, 2, 1.
Do you concede that with the expansion of gene editing technology, more people will have access to this gene editing?
Well, certainly, because once it is put into healthcare, it can solve a lot of diseases that current medicine cannot. It can solve malaria, mental disorder, CVD, HIV, and other kinds. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you have a drug available right now that can solve all these diseases at the same time?
Well, judges, I believe that all these diseases and all these things that they have put out can be solved, but it doesn't really have to be with one drug. As you have mentioned, cardiovascular disease, CRISPR is not the only drug that affects cardiovascular disease. We need to solve all these problems, I do agree, but it does not have to be solved with one drug. And I believe that if you put money into drugs that already have been tested, it will have a safer and higher rate of success. Okay, my question please. So, do you believe that that if more people get the disease, there's a higher rate, there's a higher chance of people using it for their own gains?
Well, this technology is mainly for the public, since it is put into public health care. And I repeat, it benefits society in lots of, such as fighting disease, safer skin outing alternative, and bioterrorism protection. These are points you have to consider. And now, for my question. Every year, about 20 million cases of malaria are recorded, and about 450,000 people die from it, and about 70% of them are children under 5. So, do you plan to deny these children their needs, this technology, just because you deem that it has some risk?
Yes. These children are not upper-class children. These children are not wealthy children. They're the poorest of the poor, and I believe the only reason why they're getting these diseases is because they lack the basic sanitation that they deserve, not because of a multi-billion-dollar technology has not arrived to them. So I believe that we can address these matters using other ways rather than investing in this risky new business of CRISPR. We can put money into basic sanitation rather than investing this money into a technology that may or may not work. But we all know that sanitation right now works. That through sanitation, I don't have malaria because I have the proper sanitation. It is because of that. So we know these things work. So I think we should put money into that. Now my question please. So do you believe that once we allow people to make edits on themselves, they would try to make themselves better with these edits?
Well, currently, we are only talking about public health care, and what you suggest is not within our rank of talking. Also, for your last argument, I want to suggest an alternative. Produce food. Currently, the level of hunger and malnutrition in poor people, and GMI technology has the ability to produce more food, cheaper food even, for poor people, so that more people are not suffering from malnutrition and hunger.
Yeah, that's a new point. You should have brought that up. No, it's yours.
First speaker, 2 minutes.
So my time starts now. The first condition we have mentioned is that the diversity is good for society. Since genetic variation is extremely important for human society, that we should not expand access to gene editing technology because the expansion will actually cause human society to lose their diversity. And the second one we talked about is discrimination. And I believe you wanted, opponents, you wanted to expand this access is to make more people benefit from it. But actually, if you expand this access to gene editing technology, people of color and people with people with disabilities won't benefit from it. And instead, they will suffer from negative effects. So we couldn't expand access to gene editing technology. The third one we talked about is bioterrorism. And bioterrorism, first let's talk about the impact. The impact of bioterrorism is extremely big. It's at least 30 million people. So it's not a joke. Let's see, one bioweapon could kill 30 million people, and there are really only two things that can wipe 30 million people off the planet: a nuclear weapon or a biological one. And that's why we don't think we should expand the access. And the fourth condition we talked about is gene editing will collapse the healthcare system. The people who got diseases is really a little amount in the society, and the healthcare system, public healthcare system, everyone in this society need it. And if we expand, thank you.
First speaker, 2 minutes.
So my time starts in 3, 2, 1. The conference that they just stated the risks and cost and ethical issues of gene editing technology. But I believe that this theory is invalid because the study shows that the gene editing technique, CRISPR-Cas9, can be used to make inheritable edits and cause female mosquitoes, which can cause spread malaria, to become sterile or skew them towards producing only males. So here comes my summary speech. We know that editing gene as a science technology is a double-edged sword. We firmly believe that it affirms positive rule. When mankind becomes rational, the sword of technology will open up a road to the harmonious development of man and nature. We firmly believe that editing technology, as long as human beings make rational use, will surely benefit future generations. From the history of genetic engineering, the unthinkable has become the conceivable. We are close to edit genes to transcend more healthier, and we need to decide how we as a society are going to use the capability, but not to stifle a new technology in the cradle. We believe public health service should expand access to gene editing technologies, and we are rapidly getting to the point where we can no longer deny them. Why will we expand access to technologies? Might well be because we can. Thanks.
Thank you.
Grand Cross.
Grand Crossfire, 3 minutes. 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Time. 3 minutes. Grand Crossfire. Start in 3, 2, 1.
Firstly, let me ask you a question about, can you give us an technology that was invented and was widespread and wasn't turned into a weapon?
Well, definitely CRISPR-Cas9. It helps us prevent diseases. Is that a weapon? Definitely not. And also, with your point against bioterrorism, we believe that this is exactly the technology. When we expand it, we protect the 30 million people you talk about against bioterrorism. And now for our question. You said that you care about poor people so much, but then you ignored that gene editing technology produces food, and that helps poor people.
One, you brought that up in the crossfire. And two, we do acknowledge that, but we do acknowledge that GMO is happening with or without CRISPR. And GMO is already a based field. We can put money into GMO. We do not have to put money into CRISPR. GMO exists without CRISPR. GMO has existed for decades already. Okay, now our question. Do you believe that with more people having access to CRISPR-Cas9 technology, and with that more people wanting to use it for their own gains, do you believe that there's a higher rate of bioterrorism because of that?
Well, this technology, I repeat, already exists privately in private countries. They're already using it to engineer biological weapons. That is exactly the reason why we should expand access. When the government expands access, then they can protect us against bioterrorism. Only defensive gene editing medicine can save us. Exactly my point.
Okay.
So it's time to ask our question.
Yes.
Do you think that gene editing technology can save us from some bioweapons or bioattacks?
No,
No.
we do not believe that.
Because eventually the research team at the University of Alberta, Canada had already created a bioweapon, which is a smallpox in just 6 months, and it could eventually kill like 40 million people. So I think the negative effects of expanding it is much bigger than the benefits people will get.
How much do you think?
It's
Sorry,
our turn.
sorry,
Yeah,
it's
it's our
our
turn.
question. No, it's our
No,
question.
it's
So, yeah, what do you believe? How much do you think CRISPR will impact the healthcare system?
Well, do I have to repeat this argument again concerning saving lives, the impact of saving lives, and CRISPR-Cas9? This technology is available for the public since it's put into public health services. Evidence shows that it does not cost a lot, only $30 to $120, which is not, as you said, billions of dollars.
Can you provide an evidence card for that? The $30 is
Well,
only the
can
machine.
we
What
ask
about?
her- can we
what
ask
if-
her a
okay,
question?
you ask your question.
Well then, have you considered the 30 million people's lives at stake? And you have not addressed our argument about producing food. That technology is within gene editing.
Thank you. Speaker 2, 2 minutes.
The time starts now. Okay, firstly, we gave them 3 speeches to respond to gene editing will collapse the healthcare system. And they respond to us without any evidence that gene editing costs $30. I believe that is not true. That is not true at all. And we should win this debate because of this one point. Now let me tell you what impacts and what the impacts will be if the healthcare system collapses. Now, according to 3 experts on law, policy, and health, Jim, Tina, and Chris, they say it will collapse. And I believe that it will because of these experts, all right? Now let me tell you why. Imagine there's 100 people. There's 100 people on this world, all right? 1% has a disease or has a malfunction in their genome, right? The healthcare system provides for all 100 of these people. Once it collapses, all 100 people will not receive healthcare. But if we put in CRISPR technology, there might be a chance to save that one person. I do not believe this is worth it, all right? The healthcare system should not collapse because of that 1%. What our team is suggesting is that we keep the healthcare system intact. We want people to receive healthcare, but we also want other ways. We can put other ways to save that 1%, to save people with malaria, right? We can invest money into other ways, all right? So we do not need that. And because of that one point, they have not addressed, they have conceded that the healthcare system will collapse on their side, we will win. Now secondly, onto their point about GMO food. The GMO food, GMO occurs with or without CRISPR. CRISPR only tries to modify the existing GMO field. We believe that if we put money into GMO, the existing GMO field already, it will grow. We do not need CRISPR at all. And secondly, they brought up this point of GMO food in the crossfire, which I think is strange. Okay, so we believe that if we put money into other fields, we do not need this risky new technology of CRISPR. And under our side of the house, the healthcare system exists, and under their side of the house, the healthcare system will be collapsed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Speaker 2, 2 minutes.
Our final focus starts now. So first, I believe that the other side has already agreed with our opinion about producing food. producing food, this technology is within gene editing technology. We're not talking about CRISPR exactly, but gene editing. And that is definitely the reason why we should expand access to gene editing. And of course, for a second reason, fighting disease. First, this side has not given us any alternative to fight, no current cure or treatment. So the other side is just willing to see 30 million people die from CDV, 35 million die from HIV, and also from other diseases. Now, CRISPR-Cas9 has the current ability to save all those people, all those children that are dying from malaria, from cardiovascular disease, and they choose to ignore that fact by saying that it's going to collapse the health system. Instead, it's not going to do that because it's only going to save people from all these kind of diseases. Also, the other side failed to see that expanding access will only lead to protection against bioterrorism you speak of. There is a huge risk of a bioattack now. We cannot deny that. That is exactly the reason why we should expand access, and solving this problem requires higher tolerance for innovation, less regulation. We should spread scientific, we should let the human race go forward and continue to our innovations with this technology. Whereas the human race will be the same after thousands of years because we do not care to put more money into new technologies. So it is inevitable in the long run, and those who opt out will simply fall behind. We firmly believe that public health services should expand access to gene editing technologies. Thank you.
Thank you.